Welcome, chosen one, to this moment of divine vindication. A decision has been delivered in heaven's high courts, and no power in hell can overturn it. According to spiritual law, somebody, or a group of somebodies, has just learned this reality in the most spectacularly difficult manner possible. You, the chosen one, the one set aside by God, were once their intended target. You were the scapegoat for their fears, a misunderstood soul sitting calmly in the midst of upheaval you did not cause, quietly absorbing storms you did not cause. They slandered your name with such unwavering certainty because they had the arrogant belief that no one would ever question them, that their words were final, and that their falsehoods were strong enough to become your reality. They misunderstood your polite stillness for surrender, which was both stupid and disastrous. But then, in an instant, something broke. And it was not you. It was their whole universe. It was their deceitful network, shaky relationships, and false feeling of security. Because a new force has joined the fight. Someone is defending you with a righteous fire they have never seen before, a holy inferno that is reducing their kingdom of lies to ashes. And let us be clear, this is not your relative sending an encouraging message on Facebook. No. We're talking about someone with actual power, influence, and, most terrifyingly, genuine receipts. This defender has no fear, no tolerance for their games, and no regard for their crocodile tears, useless titles, or infantile outbursts. Here's a spiritual truth that may shock you, but will eventually free you. The majority of the darkest betrayals you've experienced did not come from your designated adversaries. They came from the quiet observers, who saw everything yet decided not to say anything. They were the ones that gave you a gentle nod in private, but refused to stand out for you publicly. But guess what? The whole dynamic has now been disrupted. One of those very viewers, or possibly someone they really like, has just swapped sides. They don't simply whisper their support, they yell it from the mountaintops. Suddenly, a tangible surge of anxiety ripples through their ranks. Not because they feel any remorse for what they did to you, but because someone they respect, someone whose opinion they value, or someone they fear, has just begun calling out their conduct for what it is. Their filthy little secrets, formerly whispered in furtive huddles, are now being replayed like confession recordings in places you weren't invited to, but where your name is eventually cleared. The same people who applauded and jeered as you were spiritually crucified are now sweating bullets, their hearts hammering in their chests, when they realize the cross is no longer there and you are rising, more strong and bright than ever. Let's be fully honest with ourselves for a second. Don't you enjoy a wonderful story twist? Especially when the villain, so arrogant and certain in their deceit, is publicly exposed by someone they believed was on their side. It's like seeing a poisonous group chat crumble in real time. The treachery is moving within, and the poison is devouring them from within. All you have to do is grab some popcorn, sit back, and watch the hand of God work. Because what changed overnight wasn't simply the story they had fought so hard to control. It was the whole spiritual courtroom. A supernatural judgment has been delivered, and they are totally losing their minds, scurrying in a frenzy to find out how the one they buried, the one they left for dead, has suddenly become the headline, the star witness, and the incontrovertible, divine proof of their demise. Let's go into this sacred unraveling. Their laughter turned to panic, the arrival of your divine defender. They once laughed in your face because they assumed you had no backup. They were completely persuaded that you were standing alone, an easy victim in their sadistic pranks. Their disdain was brazen, their brutality was assured, and their falsehoods were loud because they worked under the mistaken belief that you were completely defenseless. In their narrow, spiritually ignorant minds, you were helpless. You were someone they could easily control, ridicule, and throw under the bus without any consequences. They observed your elegance and mistook it for weakness. They recognized your loneliness and praised it as a failure. They observed your God-given humility and interpreted it as license to mistreat you. They were completely certain that you would never be believed, protected, or supported by anybody who genuinely counted in their world. That is precisely why they acted in such a bold and public manner. They anticipated no responsibility. They thought they were beyond criticism, repercussions, and definitely above you. But suddenly, overnight, a heavenly hand ripped apart the screenplay they had crafted. Suddenly, someone powerful, respected, and with unquestionable credibility and integrity has stepped onto the stage of your life and declared, with heavenly authority, "No more." And just like that, the same cackling hyenas who mock you are now tripping and stumbling over their own carefully constructed narratives. Pure, unmitigated terror is written all over their features, imprinted into every fiber of their existence. But make no mistake, this anxiety is not the result of regret. They don't feel bad about what they did. They're terrified of what's coming for them now. What you are seeing is not the start of their guilt, but the height of their terror. Suddenly, they are feverishly trying to patch up their disintegrating narrative, frantically seeking to remove digital and spiritual evidence of their conduct, and pathetically trying to play nice, as if their sudden goodwill could reverse years of ill will. Why the abrupt change of heart? Because they are now being watched by someone in positions of actual power, someone who is not hesitant to express the raw, unedited truth out, someone who refuses to let your name be dragged through the dirt any longer. And the inability to control, manipulate, or quiet this individual is driving them nuts. You might sense a change in the spiritual environment. They're making frantic phone calls to each other, their voices filled with horror. They are having covert emergency sessions to plot how to spin this new development. But it's much too late. The divine judgment has already been delivered. The harm to their credibility has been done. And the person God has chosen to protect you isn't doing it halfway. They are not only providing assistance, they are systematically destroying the stronghold of falsehoods that your foes believed was invincible. They're revealing the twisted, ugly mess that your foes thought was securely buried in the darkness. This is not just a defense. This is a heavenly correction. It's a heavenly exposure. It is righteous justice taking place in real time, right in front of your eyes. And the most wonderful part? You don't even need to raise a finger. You are only a bystander to the miraculous unraveling, witnessing the same individuals who formerly took joy in your misery suddenly sweat profusely beneath the harsh, searing glare of reality. The same voices who disrespected your name yesterday are now terrified in silence, hoping that no one delves any further into their problems. However, digging is precisely what is occurring. The person God sent to protect you did not come to play games. They arrived with a spade and a spotlight, ready to discover every hidden lie. And this time, you're not the one on trial. Yes, they are. They assumed you were alone. Their narrow vision failed to see that heaven was merely waiting for the ideal, most striking time to make your vindication a public spectacle. And now that someone with genuine power is speaking for you, their phony, manufactured confidence is crumbling quicker than a house of cards in a storm. You didn't need a crowd. You needed a commander, the power of one authoritative voice. You never needed a mob of people singing your name. You never needed 1,000 people sharing your suffering on social media, cheering you on from the cheap seats, or yelling a truth they couldn't comprehend. All you ever really needed was one authentic voice. Only one. One person who had the courage, spiritual position, and divine clarity to stand up to the forces of darkness and say, "This is not right. Leave them alone." And now that this has occurred, the entire spiritual atmosphere around you has shifted so dramatically that it is palpable. The oppressive quiet that previously shielded your attackers and supported their abuse has crumbled into a million pieces. The ripple impact of that single bold voice is evident and irresistible. The overwhelming weight of one genuine, divinely anointed defender is collapsing every fake edifice they have created around your existence. To be clear, you did not fail to advocate for yourself. You did. Your voice rang out in the woods, yet it was purposely disregarded and suppressed. People heard you, and although they recognized your truth on some level, they chose to choose their own comfort above your boldness. They purposefully avoided the situation, convincing themselves that it was none of their concern since it was not directly affecting them. Some of them even had the nerve to agree with you in private text messages and phone conversations, but they kept their tongues shut in public, when their support would have been most useful. And yet, despite the terrible weight of their treachery and the deep loneliness of your struggle, you never sought their approval. You just continued following your way. You maintained your honesty well. You maintained your brightness even while surrounded by darkness. That is exactly why this moment of vindication is so wonderfully heavenly. It is not a numerical win. Rather, it is a victory orchestrated by perfect divine timing. Truth, like a strong river, always finds a way to burst through the barriers of illusion. Everything is changing quickly now that someone with spiritual power is standing out for you. Conversations that were formerly muttered slanderously behind your back are now being questioned face to face. People who swore on a stack of Bibles that they didn't know what was happening are now trying to wash the dirt from their hands in order to seem clean. The same people who secretly mocked your hardships and publicly disregarded your sorrow are now too afraid to be linked with the same catastrophe they helped create and maintain. And the whole seismic change occurred because one person finally stated what needed to be said without fear. One powerful, brave, and unapologetic voice can overcome 1,000 timid voices attempting to ignore the injustice standing in front of them. This individual isn't supporting you for the sake of social media popularity or audience approval. They protect you because they see you. They see the purity of your heart, the injustice you faced, and their voice acts as a divine switch, turning on the lights in every dark, dusty corner where you were viciously misrepresented. They are tackling the false narrative front on, without sugarcoating it for anyone's comfort. And the unvarnished truth is now striking your foes harder and more powerfully than any act of vengeance you could have imagined. You never required a throng to demonstrate your greatness. Crowds are volatile, noisy, and often worthless. All it needed was one influential and truthful voice. And now, your adversaries' falsehoods are falling beneath the enormous weight of true proof and flawless, unstoppable divine timing. Take a moment now to allow that truth to sink deeply into your soul. This is a confirmation. This is your moment. We at God Connection are dedicated to providing you with heavenly downloads that reinforce the path of the selected. If this message resonates with you and you feel compelled to help our ministry, please consider making a $10 gift using the Super Thanks button below this video. Your donation enables us to continue this critical work, improve our capacity to serve, and reach more people in dire need of the same confirmation and clarity. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to God Connection and activate the notification bell. You are more than simply a watcher. You are family. Let's continue our trip together. The end of their comfort when the watcher arrived. They were quite comfortable mistreating you. Their confidence was based on the arrogant assumption that no one significant, no one with true power, was observing. They not only crossed the boundary of decency, but they also celebrated it. They openly ridiculed you, created events to isolate you, and repeatedly pushed your buttons for their own sick delight. You were their easy target, their chosen scapegoat, the person they could blame anytime they needed a break from their own flaws. And they did it all without shame, since they believed there were no actual repercussions to confront. They were convinced that no one would ever check them, and even more certain that no one would ever believe you about them. You were the calm, modest one who always turned the other cheek, as the text instructs. And, in their great spiritual ignorance, they misunderstood your God's kindness for human frailty. But what about the deep-seated security they formerly felt, that feeling of untouchability? It's gone. It has disappeared totally, as if it had never been. Because someone with true eyes, spiritual perception, and genuine power has now entered the arena. Someone with much more authority, ethics, and a zero-tolerance stance for the kind of injustice they specialize in. That person, that divine agent, either saw what was occurring or got a divine download of the truth. And now, the same individuals who felt so comfortable and secure in harming you are in complete terror. They are trying to change their conduct, rewrite history, and look as if they were never engaged. The game has irreversibly altered. It is no longer simply your word versus theirs. They are suddenly dealing with someone who has the ability to shock their world to its very roots, to open doors that cannot be closed, and to shut doors that sorely need to be opened. They never imagined it would come to this. They stupidly imagined that they would always have the upper hand. They benefited from your seclusion and flourished in the stillness of your agony. They are now walking on eggshells. They are the ones who are now attempting to seem impartial, faking ignorance, and claiming they were never a member of the mob that came after you. They anxiously hope that this new, strong voice does not address them by name. Their body language has changed from haughty strutting to anxious fidgeting. Their tone has evolved from condescending to cautious. The bravado has vanished, replaced by a real dread. Why? Because someone they either fear or greatly admire is now keeping a close check on their every action. They never saw that aspect of the equation coming. They were so preoccupied with their petty, private attempt to bring you down that they overlooked one of the most basic spiritual laws. What is done in the dark will always be brought to light. And now, the light is blindingly brilliant. The person defending you isn't simply mumbling worries in the background. They're tackling the difficulties full-on, openly, and without apologies. And this is causing those who formerly thought they were untouchable to face pressure they never expected. They used to laugh because they assumed you had no protection. They are now deathly silent because they realize someone with genuine authority has finally, and cruelly, called out their filth. The tables have not only turned, God has brutally and irreversibly flipped them around. The lie fails when heaven provides the receipts. They insisted you were lying. They said it repeatedly, with perfectly straight faces and a performance of false worry that might have earned them an award. They expertly persuaded a group of people that you were bitter, deluded, or just making up stories for attention. They distorted your reality so well that even those closest to you started to question what you stated. They had backup singers, a choir of phony witnesses prepared to corroborate their tales. They projected confidence based largely on your presumed weakness and expected quiet. And in their minds, they had already won because they believe that if a falsehood is repeated enough times, it finally becomes truth. What they didn't realize, and could never have imagined, was that someone else was observing the whole horrible episode. Someone having access to locations they believed were safe. Someone having receipts they had no idea existed. Someone who witnessed proof of things you didn't realize were being recorded. You did not need to get your hands filthy to demonstrate your truth. You did not have to degrade yourself by fighting with those who were already determined to misunderstand you. God did not want you to become an obsessive investigator, collecting screenshots, documenting conversations, or feverishly pursuing justice that seems impossible to discover. No, He just raised someone who already had everything. Someone who had the missing parts of the puzzle that you had never asked for. That guy, that miraculously sent prosecutor, came in at the ideal time. When they arrived, the whole phony narrative fell apart. The truth poured forth, not in shy whispers, but in a torrent of brazen, unmistakable, and incontrovertible evidence. And all of your adversary's arrogant smirks vanished, leaving just a frozen visage of frightened quiet. The impression was particularly strong since this individual did not just defend you by emotional pleas. They came prepared with cold, hard evidence. The kind of evidence that cannot be fabricated, rejected, or disregarded. They believed their voice notes had been erased. They assumed the emails had been buried. Witness testimony from persons they believed were loyal to them. Intimate information that only an insider would know. Things you never had access to yet urgently wanted to be validated. And when they dumped that mound of evidence on the table, the web of falsehoods your attackers had meticulously crafted broke apart quicker than anybody could have predicted. Now, the same individuals who claim to know the real truth are feverishly attempting to rewrite their own tales, backtracking and removing their digital fingerprints. They're silent now, not because they care about the truth, but because the evidence has utterly silenced them. They can't gaslight their way out of this one. They can't play the innocent victim longer. They can't blame you for their exposure. All they can do is sit back and watch in terror as all they constructed on the basis of pure falsehood is gradually revealed to the world. And the most powerful aspect of it all, you didn't need to raise a single finger. You did not need to become like them to overcome them. You didn't need to destroy them. The truth has done it for you. And the person God chose to speak on your behalf did not come to play. They came to bring about ultimate and conclusive justice. The receipts they presented were more than simply evidence. They were supernatural affirmation that you never lied. They were consistently incorrect. And now everyone knows. The last word, when their idol condemns them. They erected their whole empire on the fragile basis of perception. They ruled the narrative with an iron hand because no one in their group dared to question them. They were always the biggest voices in the room, the most persuasive storytellers, and the best manipulators. People bowed down to their version of events, not because it was true, but because they used influence as a weapon. And for a long time, that technique worked perfectly. They effectively depicted you as the issue, the aggressor, and the unstable person. They poked crooked fingers at you, sobbed phony tears to get pity, and everyone around them believed their act. This was particularly successful since the few individuals who knew the truth and could have spoken out chose the cowardly road of quiet. Until now, suddenly, someone they adore, someone they answer to, someone they almost worship, not spiritually, but in terms of power, position, and credibility, has stepped up and spoken the words they never imagined they'd hear. You are the problem, not them. And with that, the whole room froze. A pin-drop calm descended where their loud falsehoods had previously boomed. People pay attention when they hear that kind of voice. They are well aware of this. That one simple phrase had more weight, strength, and devastating force than all of the complex falsehoods they had uttered over the years combined. It was not murmured in a whisper. It was not hinted at behind closed doors. It was expressed immediately, publicly, and strongly, with an undeniable sense of finality. And that one instant of raw, unadulterated truth broke every mask they had ever worn. The misleading tales they used to rally people behind their cause today seemed completely ludicrous. The copious compassion they formerly gathered so freely is drying up like a river in a drought. People are suddenly connecting the connections that they had previously ignored. That strong voice did not protect you because you asked for it. They protected you because the truth about your character has now become so obvious that it can no longer be ignored. And it comes from someone whose words they can't change, whose impact they can't deny, and whose judgment they truly dread. The one voice they fought so hard to keep out of the problem is suddenly right in the thick of it, and they're not holding back. They are revealing patterns of abuse, calling out toxic conduct, and making it quite evident that the villain in this narrative is not who everyone thought it was. Your adversaries are now in a tailspin, seeking to defend what little remains of their shattered reputations and desperately attempting to transfer the responsibility onto anybody other than themselves. But it isn't functioning anymore. They're losing their mesmerizing influence over people. Their influence is spreading across the floor since the person they depended on for approval is no longer playing their twisted game. That affects a narcissist differently. All it took was one respected voice speaking the plain truth, and the whole illusion they had constructed crumbled like cheap glass. And you? You did not have to say anything. Your vindication is now a tribute to your perseverance. The storm has gone, and you remain standing. The falsehoods have been revealed, and your truth shines brighter than ever. This is God's justice, which is more strong than any human scheme. This is your moment of confirmation. If this word from God connection has touched your spirit, do not waste this opportunity. Take action. Subscribe to this channel right now to ensure you never miss a heavenly message that validates what God has been saying to you. Like this video to help us spread the word and show the algorithm that truth still counts in this world. Please leave a comment below and tell us what resonated with you. Share your experience, your transformation, and your tale of vindication. Please do not keep this profound message to yourself. Share it with someone you know who has been struggling in silence and needs to be reassured that heaven is fighting for them as well. This is not just material, it is confirmation. This is clear. This is a spiritual invitation to step into your power. Hit the notification bell to be the first in line for the next amazing download. We are very appreciative for any assistance you may provide our mission. If you feel prompted, please consider making a super thanks gift to help us keep sharing the light. You're not alone. You were picked. Let us travel this road together. God bless you.